I'm alive and the world shines for me. I got a smudge on my glasses. It's okay. Oh, that's so weird. Hey, people, excuse me. My Betty's having new house, new rules, not new house, new location. There's a weird little, whoop. I don't know what that just was. Here, let me. Wait, oh, that's right. Scott Sachs said to not be a disembodied head. Let me see if I can do something here. Pardon me, everybody. Hey, Maud Betty. Hey, Cliff Hillis. As you can see, I have moved studii, as it were, and I had it all set up. Why am I all crooked? Anyhow, I'm getting all fussy. And guess what? My notes are over here, actually, so I'll be right back. Here. Entertain yourself by looking at the stuff behind me, okay? I'll be right back. There we go. Hey, Debbie, nice to see you. Yes, so Craig, I totally, Craig. I'm cracking up because it is very nice outside. It is so nice outside, and I thought, you know what? I could be out in the, it's weird. I'm turning this way because I have a smudge on my glasses. Oh, just today's going to be just so silly. But in any case, yeah, I could be out in the studio and actually after this, I'm going to go on a nice little walk. But at the moment, it is, I decided to just do it. I just decided to kind of, I don't know what the thing is. Carpe the diem, as I'm always saying. I decided to do that and just start broadcasting from the Retro Roadmap Indoor Studios. Now, if you guys, all of y'all who have been part of this Retro Roadmap Facebook Live that I've been doing since March 17th. Yes, St. Patrick's Day of 2020. As some of you remember, when I very first started this, it's kind of funny. You will look back, and actually you can, because all of the videos that I have done are archived on the Retro Roadmap Facebook page under the Videos tab. Makes sense. And there we go. Maybe that gives it a little bit more of me. And then also on YouTube. Anyhow, you will notice that when I very first started this, I actually have a green background, and that's because when we all went, working on the clamp down, when we were all totally stuck inside and we didn't know what we were going to do, I asked Retro Road Husband if he would help paint my studio, and it's all white now. And the funny thing is it was all white back then, but it was white paint that was left over from when it actually, we bought the house like 15, 16 years ago. So it was kind of crappy. And then it turned out to be beautiful weather in the spring and in the summer. And even now, I am so excited that it is so nice outside. In October, it actually makes me want to not necessarily scurry to a warmer climate immediately. Maybe October is a month that I want to stay, in Pennsylvania, something like that. Anyhow, welcome. I promise I'm gonna get this. I feel all kind of crooked and everything. I will work on that, but what I want to work on today is, hey Lynn, nice to see you, is the Retro Roadmap Facebook Live, talking about all the states, all the contiguous 48 and the ones not so contiguous, right? So we are on episode, anybody? 43. We're on episode 43. This means that I have shown up and we have all hung out 43 times this year, which is so great, especially with all that's going on in the world. So today is episode 43. I'm going to cover the state of Wyoming. Why not? Why Wyoming? Why not Wyoming? And this is great because I'll give you a little bit of perspective. So here we are. Started, for anybody here's, nice to see you, Carol Jackson. It's good to see you. We started way over here in Maine, way back in March. Actually, episode 2 is when I decided to do a state a month, and we have been working our way in that kind of classic that classic cross-country road trip, if you will, from the East Coast to the West. From the East to the West. And now we are here in Wyoming, a big old rectangular state right there, and surprising, a lot of cool things I am excited to share with you. I have never been to Wyoming, so I got to learn about cool vintage places that have been around for 50 plus years or more, which is kind of the retro roadmap vibe. And I got to actually get excited about some places that I would like to go to in Wyoming. If you're interested in other states that I've covered, again, the Facebook, I'm going like this, like they're back there. The videos I have done are on the Facebook page. You can look for different states because I've done every state. And check it out. I did some notes, and this is episode 43. And I only have 9 more episodes of this entire series that I'm doing. That will bring us to December 31st of this year. Will be the last episode. That's going to be the state of California. And we have a couple of days off. I have a couple of days off. I'll go through that at the end of today's show. But just to give you an idea that, you know, we've come a long way, baby, as they said. So let's hit Wyoming, shall we? So I have a little close-up here. So here is basically, let me see if I'm holding it up straight. I believe I am. So this is the state of Wyoming, kind of a rectangular action going on here. We are basically going to start right here because last week we did Colorado. And so we're going to go up here and smidge up here, and then we're going to go up and over and back and around. I won't be able to get to all the places that I would love to because we only have an hour, and with me yakking, now we have like 50 minutes. But I am so excited about the places that I did decide to share with you. So the very first one, I literally was zooming in on the Google Map pin of this place, and I swear you can see the state line. I'm going to talk about Terry Bison Ranch and Resort. So this was kind of a neat thing because I did not know until I started researching Wyoming that it's so like cowboy country. Like when people talk about the West, you know, the old West and stuff like that, they're totally talking about places like Wyoming. And the Terry Bison Ranch and Resort is a place that's totally like so cool. It's a resort and it's a ranch because that's what they named it. But you can take a train out, an old-fashioned train out into their area, and you can see bison roaming free in their ranch. It's only open since the 1990s, I'll give you that, but here's a crazy, awesome thing that I know that retro road mappers are going to love, because check this out. This is a place that is taking this whole notion of what is going on with the COVID, things like that, and kind of doing something cool with it. So what they are doing at the Terry Bison Ranch is they have actually opened up a temporary drive-in movie theater on the ranch where you can see old movies. It's called the Chinook. And you can see drive-in movies there, which I think is great because this is, I mean, this state has a lot of open land to create like a drive-in movie theater. And it cracks me up that honestly, I'll mention it when I get to it, but I'll give you a secret hint. So, you know, Wyoming, trying to get, if I had a little pointer here, Wyoming, big state, right? They only have one drive-in movie theater in the entire state, not counting the Chinook at the ranch that I was just telling you about, but I just to give you kind of a perspective on that. So Cheyenne is actually, that's in Cheyenne, and there's a number of places. I've got like my whole first page and then some is in Cheyenne. So if you want to feel like you spent some quality time in the state, but you can only get to maybe that area right above the Colorado border, I would recommend this because downtown Cheyenne has a couple of neat things. I will start with the Depot Museum. So this is what used to be the train station, the train depot in downtown Cheyenne for the Union Pacific Railroad. And now it has been turned into, because the train doesn't go there anymore, it has been turned into a museum with photographs and models on display for everybody. And so if you like history of transportation like I do, you'd want to go there. But plus, maybe you were not interested in that. You know, your call. The Accomplice Beer Garden. There's a beer garden there as well. So maybe you say to your really interesting friends like Maud Betty, hey, I know you're going to go learn something. I'll meet you over here. I'm going to go learn about their local beer. Okay, so that's in downtown Cheyenne. And then this is so much fun. I don't know if you all ever get onto Google Maps like I do. This is one of the things I feel like if I ever like broke my leg or something and I was in my bed and I couldn't go anywhere, I would literally probably take a road trip via the power of Google Street View and be able to see places, because I was looking at the street view of the depot in Cheyenne, and the camera kind of did like a 360, and all of a sudden I saw this really cool old vintage sign that I may not have known about. And this was at the Wrangler clothing store. Now, not Wrangler, the brand, you know, like the jeans we used to wear in the 70s, though maybe they sell them, but it's the Wrangler clothing store. It's been open since 1943, and it's this huge, really beautiful kind of red brick, painted brick, but red brick building with a giganto sign on the top. And that's where you can get your duds, your dude duds, I guess, you know, that you can get your Western style clothes, things like that. You know, what do I want to say? Like cowboy boots and cowboy hat, and probably cowboy shirts and jeans, like the whole top to bottom, you know, from your 10-gallon hat to your size 10 boots. You could get them there. I was cracking up at the fact that when I looked at this, I thought, you know how like when you go on vacation and you buy things that remind you of like where you are, even though you may not wear them at home anymore? I wouldn't be surprised if I came home with some like Western abilia thing that when I get home, I'm like, why am I wearing this? You know, it's just very funny. But that would be at the Wrangler clothing store in Cheyenne. Right in that whole area. This is great because this is an area where you can walk around to some of these places that I'm going to tell you about. The Historic Plains Hotel and Restaurant. It's got this kind of fun teepee or wigwam shaped neon sign in the front, but it's been open since 1911. 1911, as my sister would say. It is a 4-minute walk from the depot and about a 10-14 minute walk to the Capitol. So old school, fun, nicely renovated historic hotel in Wyoming would be the Historic Plains Hotel, and they've got a restaurant and a bar. So let's say you don't want to stay there for whatever reason, you can always go and check out the interiors, and you know, have a drink at the bar, have a little app, you know, whatever. The other neat thing I found out about Cheyenne is the fact that the Route 30, so some of us in the eastern part of the country know it as a Route 30, but most of us know it even better as its famous name, the Lincoln Highway. The Lincoln Highway goes from the East Coast to the West Coast, and it goes through Wyoming. I did not really kind of figure this out. I am sorry, Brian Farr. I did not know this. But when I happened to look at the Google Maps, I saw that it said Old Lincoln Way. So if you're one of those completists like I am and you want to maybe drive on a bit of the old road in every state, this is a place to go. What else have I missed? Okay. Oh, right around the corner, the Atlas Theater. The Atlas Theater is a really cool place in Cheyenne. Oh, you know what? I missed your comment, Jacksina. I will have to get to that, but I will let you know that Cody, I do have a couple of places to mention for there. The Atlas Theater in Cheyenne, built in as theater in 1908, so over 100 and something years old, and now is the home, and actually it is the, I say now is the home. It is the home of the Cheyenne Little Theater Players, and it has been the home of the Cheyenne Little Players since 1930. And they're not like the little people, you know, like little Fisher-Price people. They're regular people who do that, but a little theater. And I just think that's so adorable. Now, there was a theater in Cheyenne, within walking distance, like many towns and cities back in the day before, you know, the internet and before TV and all this, you would have multiple theaters. There was one called the Paramount. It was also a ballroom. It is now a place where you can get cocktails, which is kind of fun, and coffee. So depending upon what time of the day it is, and you can decide what time of the day you decide to drink your coffee or your cocktails. I'm not going to judge, but that's the Paramount Ballroom in Cheyenne. Now, this was fun too, because it is not a legitimate diner as we East Coast people think of it, which is like the kind of ones that are built in a factory and chugged out. I think we had like one or two of those in last week's episode in Colorado, which was so exciting to see an East Coast diner in a West Coast, so westernly part of the country. But there's a place in Cheyenne called the Luxury Diner. And it's definitely more on the diner side than the luxury side. You know, it's not like fancy, but it's been named the Luxury Diner since like Faves, as the kids say. Actually, it was working on a diner since 1926. But the neat thing is, it is one of the few, and here's a little kind of diner history lesson for you. It is one of the few diners that actually is an old, like, trolley car. Oftentimes when journalists and people talk about diners, you know, like diners that you eat in, like a food diner, they sometimes get their wires crossed and they think that they used to be dining cars from trains or trolley cars. And I know this is such a pet peeve of like the diner crew, of which I am a member, a card-carrying member, but I try to explain that, you know, it's easy to understand because they call it like a dining car in the train, and then you've got like the Worcester dining car, you know, company who makes these things. So it's easy to get confused, and especially where there are places like the Luxury Diner in Cheyenne that actually was a trolley car, and then when trolleys ended up going by the wayside, they saved the little trolley car, you know, put it up on blocks and started serving food there. A very cute little place, you know, stuff made by, you know, from scratch, by hand, old-timey recipes. Sausage gravy is their thing. So if you want to go and eat the thing that they started back then, you know, some of those old-fashioned menu things. I don't think I have any menu items from Wyoming. I bet it's probably a lot of like Cowboy, so a lot of meat, stuff like that. But anyhow, speaking of cowboys and Cheyenne, they have a thing called the Cheyenne Frontier Days. Now, this is totally like cowboy related. It started in 1897 and it's been going on since then. It's usually the last full weekend of July. So like next year, 2021, you know, if all things go well and we're able to get out and do stuff, July 23rd to August 1st. And it is one of these things where the Union Pacific that's where the train went to the depot. And then they were like, hey, how can we get more people out to like you know, check out what's cool in town? And they started these Frontier Days. Started as a rodeo. They've got a carriage parade, like the horse-drawn carriages and stuff. It's the world's largest outdoor rodeo. They've got trick riding, a Native American village, you know, pancake breakfast, chuck wagon, like all that stuff that you would think that if you imagine, like, what would they have at like a, you know, a cowboy themed thing, they've got it there. So that's the Cheyenne Frontier Days. They've got the Carnival Midway, all sorts of things. So that's in Cheyenne. Let me just tell you where we were. So all that I was yakking about, we barely have even touched smidgied this giganto state. So I'm going to kind of hop us on the road and we're going to go truck up to here. Now this is only going to be a little stop because there's not much else around here. But I had to tell you about the place that on my map looks like a little ice cream cone because we're in Chugwater. Chugwater, Wyoming is the Chugwater soda fountain. No, you do not need to chug water in Chugwater, though that would be kind of funny if you were on Instagram or something. But it's the oldest still operating soda fountain in the entirety of Wyoming. It opened in 1916. They are famous for not only their sweets. So soda fountains is like, you know, ice cream sodas, ice cream, you know, sundaes, anything ice creamy, that type of deal. But they also have food, so you can get food there. So you can stop, you can stretch, you can bend if you're over 50, you know, because you're 50. Cracking myself up. And get something either sweet or savory at the Chugwater, because they're famous for their green chili. That's a thing. Green chili is a thing here. And they actually have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They even have a beer garden. I don't think they grow beer in a beer garden. But yeah, Chugwater soda fountain. Now, couple of interesting historical places I'm going to throw in there that appealed to me. There's plenty. There's whatever strata of history you're interested in, you can dive deep in this state. If you also don't even care about history, or you just want to learn about like mountain ranges and stuff like that, topography, you can do that. But I want to tell you about a place called Register Cliff Monument. Ollie, nice to meet you. Register Cliff Monument is in Guernsey, Wyoming. Now, I will admit that the name of it kind of caught my eye because Retro Road husband, my husband, his name is Cliff. So when I see the word cliff, I'm like, oh, what's that? And this is a place that is a cliff, like a stone cliff, as you know, out in nature. And this is a famous landmark on the Oregon Trail. Now, I think some of the youngsters who are watching, if there are any youngsters, and I say youngsters like anybody under 40, might remember I think it was an Oregon Trail, like video game or something, but I'm talking about the real one, which I didn't even know about. This was the 2,000-mile route that went from Missouri to Oregon City, and then that was kind of like the route for the American pioneers in the mid-1800s. So like I'm so familiar with Chicago to LA for Route 66. This is even prior to that. This was getting people from the middle of the country kind of going west. And when they got to Guernsey, Wyoming, they would go past this cliff, and this cliff is made out of very soft stone. And so what they would do, and it's so funny how humans are like this, you know, they would carve their name and the date in, like, you know, Beth was here 10/22/1984, you know. And the crazy thing is that many of those places where people kind of graffitied their names into this rock over hundreds and 50s years ago are still in there. They said there's only over 700 of these signatures that you can still see. And it just cracks me up that it's like, you know, you're in like a pizza place and somebody carves their name into the thing. Or where is it? Coney Island Hot Dogs in Worcester, Massachusetts. If you go there, you can see where throughout the decades people have scratched their names into the booths. So it's kind of like that, but out in nature. It's called the Register Cliff Monument, and that's in Guernsey. Now, if that was a little bit too schooly for you, you know, too much real history, let me tell you about some fake history in Wyoming that Wyoming is known for. And I'm talking about a creature called the jackalope. Now, I kind of wish I had one to show you because it's kind of funny, because what it is, it's kind of, well, I'm saying it's made up. Maybe it's not. You can figure it out for yourself, but it's a combination jackrabbit and then like antelope. You know, it's got like, what do you call these things? Like antlers? There we go. That's more like a moose, but you know what I mean. So a jackalope is part jackrabbit, part antelope. And I think they really just invent these things to get a giggle for people from out of state who maybe are like, oh, is that really a thing here? Thing I love about this is you can actually go to Douglas. Douglas, Wyoming is kind of the epicenter of the jackalope. They say that that's where the jackalope was born or discovered or maybe just invented. And you can do a couple of things. You can go see the giant jackalope, jackalope capital of the world. So you can stand on, you can actually have, they have a giant one you can sit on and get your picture taken. I did that at the Jackrabbit on Route 66, which I'll tell you about when we get to that state. But giant jackalope in Douglas. And then the neat thing is too, you don't have to just go out there and just be like, oh, look, one and done. It was just a photo op and kind of, I bought like my, you know, tacky souvenir that had a jackalope thing on it. The Wyoming State Fair. The Wyoming State Fair is in Douglas. And I did not know this, again, until I looked at the map, zoomed in what I was interested in, and then kind of just pulled out and said, what else is around here? The other neat thing I found, this was totally cool. There's a place called the College Inn Bar. Now, those of you who go to the grocery store, in the soup section, you'll see a thing that's like College Inn broth. Anybody? I don't know. When we cleaned out my great Aunt Aga's apartment after she passed, she hoarded a lot of this College Inn broth, so maybe that's why it's stuck in my head. But anyhow, this has nothing to do with the broth, but it's College Inn, I-N-N, and it's this old school, really cool looking bar. It's been open since 1906. It is on the National Register of Historic Places. Glorious exterior. Lots of glass brick, which I think is a little bit more like Art Deco than 1906, but who knows? I don't know the provenance of it all. But it's absolutely beautiful place. So while you're in Douglas, I've given you now a place to go get a wacky picture on a jackalope. And then if you time it right, I apologize, I don't have the Wyoming State Fair dates, but it's been going on for 110 years, so I'm sure you can Google it. And then you can have a drink at the College Inn Bar and just admire that cool old school architecture. One more place that somebody recommended to me that I thought was kind of fun in Douglas, it's called the Railroad Interpretive Center. Now, back in the day, the railroad is pretty much what, got people from, from east to west and west to east. And you can go into some of these old school, like, rail cars and see what they're like. So check that out. So what else we've got here? Ooh, there's a fun place called Gillette. Gillette, Wyoming has the Frontier Relics Auto Museum. I know retro road mappers love the auto museums, so I always try to include one or two of those. This is got antique, upcycled, and Wyoming-made products, and classic cars, gas store stuff, and several items from the oil and gas industry. And that's another kind of fun thing. Like, I think I showed you all a couple episodes back, I have this really fun map of the U.S. that I'm actually looking at right now, and I'm looking at Wyoming, and they literally have like a little picture that has like oil derricks, and they've got some sheep, and then they've got a geyser, and the geyser, I'll get to that if I ever stop yakking about these places. But anyhow, a lot of places to go check out. Now I'm going to take a slight detour, and this place is someplace that I just had to make sure you knew about. Okay, yeah, so there's the car place, and then we're way up here in the corner here. We're way up here in the corner, and I know as soon as I tell you about the name of the place, you might know what I'm talking about. Devil's Tower. Devil's Tower, Wyoming. Now, this is one of those places that in science class or maybe whatever, geology, you noticed that it was like this crazy like mountain that kind of came out of nowhere. In the middle of lowland, it's there, and there's a whole, like, how did this get here? I don't know. So there's the whole science history about this actual, place. But here's how I knew it. Science fiction, was it do-do-do-do-do? Was that the beginning of Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Of the Second Kind? Close Encounters? Yeah. Close Encounters was actually filmed at and in and about and around Devil's Tower. I'm pointing at the wrong thing. Devil's Tower, which is an actual place. Yes. So see, that's Retro Road husband Cliff Hillis who's going, Close Encounters, and yeah, we still have to go there. We find out some history about real stuff, but we'll also be like, oh, remember when they made a thing of that? And it was like mashed potatoes, Richard Dreyfuss. I don't know. I'll be honest, people. The last time I saw that movie is when it came out, which I think is like 1978. Yeah. So that's how much random stuff is still up in my head. But up in that corner of Wyoming, so it's up here near Montana, South Dakota, is Devil's Tower. So if you're interested in science or science fiction, that's the place to go. Now we're going to go from that corner. We're going to chug our way westward because I want to make sure we hit a bunch of places. Buffalo, Wyoming. Buffalo, I guess when they meant shuffle off to Buffalo, I don't think they meant here. But there's a place called the historic Occidental Hotel. Now, I don't mean to be all school-like today, but I just kind of fell down a wee bit of a rabbit hole when I was trying to figure out, like, when I read about this hotel. It's a classic old school place, opened in 1903. They have restored it to that kind of, that era. And the funny thing is that instead of the hotel, totally adorable, nicely renovated, furnished with antiques and decorated in elegant period style, I got all hung up on the fact that I'm like, Occidental, accidental, oxymoron, oriental, like, so Occidental, this is like your quick, like, check off your thing of like things I learned today. After today's episode, you can totally like just clock out and go, you know, have a beer. Because Occidental actually relates to things from the West, and not the American West, but like, you know how we said, like, back in the day, they would be like, oh, the Orient and the exotic Far East. You know, this is like the West. So Occidental means from the West, but it's more of like a global thing. So put that in your Jeopardy and smoke it. So the historic Occidental Hotel is in Buffalo, Wyoming. So you can impress people with your knowledge of that and stay in an old school motel. And then this place, I don't know if I would pick, but yeah, this next place I'm going to tell you about is pretty much, when I saw the picture of it, I was like, wow, that is my kind of place. I think there are two of them, but even just the exterior. The Mint Bar in Sheridan, Wyoming. Google it, people, and Google it, and then go over to where you can only see images, because hell's a poppin'. It's got the most glorious neon sign outside. It's like, it wraps around the corner of this little bar. It's got like a bucking bronco in neon. I don't know if it moves or not, but it just looks absolutely gorgeous. And I said, actually, here's what I wrote. I couldn't think of the word, because there's an official word in the sign biz for this. So I was like, it's stupendous, it's miraculous, it's amazing neon sign jutting out. And then I remembered it's called a spectacular. There's an official kind of neon sign, or other old school neon signs, signs, not just neon, that are called spectaculars. And I think this kind of fits the bill, at least in my book. And this is a fascinating thing too. So if that wasn't enough to entice you to come into this bar has been open since 1907. So how fun is that? They have a place on the walls where people, okay, so picture it, cowboys, right? Cowboys and cows, and you need to tell one cow from another. So remember, they used to, like, they would brand the cows on their little behind. So it could be like, oh no, those are my cows, these are your cows. So they jokingly say on the website for the Mint Bar that they take brand recognition to a completely new level, because they have over 9,000 cattle brands that are all, they've got these brands on the wall. Now just think about that, 9,000. That means that there were at one point like 9,000 different people who were owning cattle, thus requiring the brands. Blows me away. So that's Sheridan, Wyoming. Bunch of other cool stuff you can do while you're there, but I am telling you, like, that neon sign would get me to be like, we're driving and seeing that thing, because it's absolutely glorious. So yeah, just so exciting. Yep. So we're going to move from Sheridan once, you know, our blood sugar kind of calms down and I can, you know, actually go there. We're going to continue west from Sheridan to Wolf, Wyoming. And the reason we're stopping in Wolf, Wyoming on our imaginary tour of Wyoming is because that's where Eaton's Dude Ranch is, right? And so a dude ranch, I guess you and I would be considered dudes, or maybe dudette, I don't know. But because instead of like dude, like party on, you know, Jeff Spicoli and all that, it kind of refers to, like, I guess to me the equivalent would be like the landlubber. Like if you're a person who's hanging out on the water a lot and you say to the people who don't do that, you know, it's kind of like the cowboys call us non-cow folk dudes. And so a dude ranch is for us non-dudes to then go and pretend to be cowboys and cowgirls for like a week. So Eaton's Dude Ranch in Wolf is the oldest dude ranch in America. Now this is where you can do horseback riding. They've got fishing. They've got archery. Notice how I didn't say archery. Oh my God, it's like all this outdoorsy stuff, like all that fresh air. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to sleep well. They've got outdoor pool, hot tub, a bar, and free meals. That's more my style, but it's Eaton's Dude Ranch in Wolf. So if you ever want to be like, howdy partners, you know, and you pretend you're a cowboy, and then you go sit in the hot tub because your tuchus is kind of hurting because you're on a road, you know, riding a horse, pretending to rope broncos. I wonder where that was. Anybody, I don't know. I'm going to throw this out there in the comments. So this is totally random, but remember that part in Wayne's World, the movie, where they have the postcards that go behind him, like, hey, we're in Delaware. And then it was like, they had the one for Hawaii. They had another one too, because it was like, look at me, I'm roping broncos. And I don't know what state that was. If you do, put it in the comments. And wouldn't it be hysterical if it was Wyoming? So yeah, that's how my brain works. Speaking of how your brain works, this is kind of cool. So this is, again, a little bit more like just fascinating history-wise, but I'm going to talk for a smidge about the Bighorn medicine wheel. So the Bighorn medicine wheel is in Lovell, Wyoming, and it's kind of like Stonehenge, and it is a bunch of stones that are arranged in the shape of a wheel, right? 80 feet across, so diameter 80 feet from end to end, and then they've got 28 spokes. So picture it, medicine wheel, like a wheel, you know, not a baby wheel, Jay, an actual wheel, not a whale, a wheel. And they're called cairns. I also want to say cons. And it's kind of one of those places that American Indians used for years to kind of tell, for centuries, telling like the time of the season, as the zombies might say. And, you know, certain times of the year, the sun would align. And I just love the notion that even back before we had all this technology, people were creating their technology to kind of, you know, track time passing. So that is the Bighorn Medicine Wheel in Lovell. It still is a place where Native Americans go, and it's kind of a sacred place to them. So be cool and honor that. Like, don't be the ugly American and, you know, be a pain in the butt about it. Please don't disturb some of the things that they leave there. In any case, that's the Bighorn Medicine Wheel. Lynn, I don't know what's up with the comments section under the live video. I apologize. I'll have to check out afterwards. I'm still using my phone, actually, even though all of my other technology kind of went haywire this week, but oh, that's such another converse. So I apologize. You know, Facebook changes stuff on us all, and we just kind of, I'm going to roll with it. So I apologize. We'll figure it out later. So while we're in Lovell, Wyoming, visiting the Bighorn Medicine Wheel, there's also a couple of other things I want to tell you about. One is kind of along that line of being outdoors and in nature, the Pryor Mountain Wild Mustangs. Now that is not the high school football team or anything. It's actual wild Mustang horses that still roam free. And this is a herd of horses because that has been kind of out in the wild because the herd existed because of horses that were brought over by the Spanish decades ago, hundreds of years ago. So they are scrappy little horses that are wild, but the Pryor Mountain Wild Mustang herd, there's a place there that actually you can go and you can take little rugged mountain rides. And I think the mountains are rugged, hopefully the ride is not, but in Jeeps. And you can go and see these horses like running free. And I just think that's so cool. It's almost like when you're in Chincoteague and you see their horses, who those two were also from Spain because they weren't indigenous to here. But they brought them over here. So that's kind of a neat thing. And then in Lovell, there's also, oh, this was so fun. So the high art the High Art movie theater. So the High Art is in Lovell as well. Sally, thank you if you can help her. That's awesome. I can only read like 2 things. I will read back on the comments and see if I can improve things next week. But thanks all y'all for helping each other in there. That's what community is all about, so rock on. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the High Art Theater, and the reason I'm going to point this one out is because it's got this awesome 1950s marquee. Not Biz marquee, but marquee. Now, it's so funny because I'm looking at this and it's flipped. Okay, so over here, see the color of that little box right there, that kind of awesome aqua, right? So that to me is the color of the exterior of this old movie house. It's got this great kind of asymmetrical exterior with crossed paint brushes art and like a palette. It's got these great kind of diamond shaped things, almost like breeze block, but not really. And all of it is this wonderful aqua blue. Google it. It's the High Art, Hyart Theater in Lovell. It's been open since 1950. And this place is so, and it looks so out of place in Wyoming, because Wyoming is all this kind of rugged natural beauty and cowboys and stuff, and a lot of that like on brown nature things. And this place just like shocks your rods and cones back into 50s marvelousness. So there's what that is. Now Lovell ends with 2 L's, and so does Powell. Powell ends in 2 L's. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of places in Powell. One is, and I mentioned this before, the only drive-in movie theater in Wyoming at all is the American Dream Drive-In. That's in Powell, the only vintage one in the state. And then I want to just give you a smidge of, I don't want to get too serious, but there was a place I wanted to make sure I pointed out, which is in Powell as well. Now it's called the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center, and basically what it is, a little bit of history. Think back to World War II and the U.S., Pearl Harbor, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, the U.S. was in a tiz, and sadly, many Americans got concerned that their Japanese neighbors weren't just their regular neighbors, but they were something evil infiltrating the U.S. And this is a sad time in our history because we did not trust the people who lived here. But what they basically did was they rounded up all the Japanese immigrants and people who had lived here sometimes for decades and put them in camps. This was, less than 100 years ago. This was happening in the U.S. There was a place in Park County, Wyoming, more than 14,000 people at this camp, and there were many others of them across the U.S. that they did this. And the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center tells the story of the people who lived in these camps. And it's just important to remember that while we talk about all sorts of the fun and fluff of our history, we also recognize that within our country and within all of us, we've got the good and the bad. And what we want to do is we want to encourage the good and discourage the bad. So maybe if we learn about this, we will learn to, not make the same kind of mistakes again. So that's the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center in Powell. Now, I want to make sure that I get to a couple of these places. I still think I'm doing good on time. And this might be a good place for me, too, to also just mention, if you know of any places in Wyoming that you think Retro Road Mappers would be excited to go to, or maybe Maud Betty doesn't know about, whatever, throw them in the comments. Do that. Share them with your neighbors. I'm not the only one who can, who knows about this. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've never been to Wyoming, but I am so excited to go to a number of these places now that I have done my research. And one of the reasons I do these Facebook Lives is because I want you to get excited to go to them too. When it is safe for us to go traveling across state lines, etc. So I don't know when that will be, but my hope is that I'm giving you some neat places to get excited about, that after today you'll be like, ooh, now I know some things in Wyoming. Whereas to me, I'll be honest, I had my Google map was like a big rectangle, and I think I had like 2 pins on it. I want to say it was Devil's Tower and maybe the Mint Bar. And now I filled it in with all sorts of other places. So that was just my little smidge of that. So now we're going to talk about Cody. Cody, Wyoming's got a bunch of things. And Buffalo Bill Cody, you know, he was kind of a big deal there. I will leave it to you to research it, because if I started talking about him, we would never be done. But there's a couple of places related to him, especially the Irma Hotel, Buffalo Bill's Irma Hotel and Restaurant in Cody. It was the original hotel in the Rockies. It was incorporated in 1901. So again, now that's like almost 120 years old. How awesome is that? 52 miles from, yes, Yellowstone National Park, which I'll get to in a smidge. And Cody was actually founded by Colonel William F. Buffalo Bill. Okay, so if you like to go to old school hotels, or there's a restaurant there as well, that would be a place you totally want to check out when you were in Cody. Also in that kind of old school, like checking out the old school vibe, there's a place called Old Trail Town. So Old Trail Town is actually one of those, like, it's a recreation of a frontier town with 1800s log cabins and a saloon. So you know you're going to have to go through the saloon and go through those doors and be like, howdy, duties. And you'll get your bar, like there'll be the guy playing the piano, and then he'll look up, you know, all those tropes. You know, the beer will come sliding down the bar, and you'll grab it and you'll drink it. And then the girl will be sitting there on top of the piano. It'll be lots of fun. But that is Old Trail Town in Cody. And that's kind of one of those, like, pretending to be an old school trail town. Now, this was kind of fun. That I love this. I'm going to just read what they said. It's a place called Cassie's Supper Club. Now, you know, there are certain things that I hear and I'm like, I get all excited. One of them is the word luncheonette. I guess the other one would be fried food of any kind. But also supper club, because supper clubs tend to be a thing in the Midwest and in the West. And Cassie's Supper Club in Cody has been a hot spot since 1922. So it's almost 100 years old. So maybe in 2022, you could go there and end up going to be like, you could end up going there on their like 100th anniversary. You know, make plans for the future, people. Make good plans for the future. This is what Retro Roadmap is all about. Even if you can't do it now, you know. But Cassie's was open in 1922, and it was founded by Cassie Waters, and they called her a young widow, a sporting lady, a madam, and a respected businesswoman. So I think the suppering is what's going on there, not so much the madaming or the sporting. But you want to check that out. That's Cassie's Supper Club in Cody, right? Now, yes, I did mention Yellowstone. Yellowstone National Park is there, and hello, you can totally Google all that all you want. The neat thing is for me is, I'll be honest, I wasn't quite exactly sure where Yellowstone was on the map. I've heard of it. There's Old Faithful, the geyser that you can see that goes whoosh, you know, there's all that. And there's all sorts of absolutely drop-dead gorgeous natural beauty that you can see when you're in the national park. So thank goodness somebody had the sense to stop us from building stuff there and create this natural treasure that we can all observe. The two things I want to mention, however, is if you are of the Retro Roadmap bent, which I know you are because you're watching right now, these are the two things that took that from like, oh, hey, that's a neat thing to do, go see the nature, to like, ooh, this would be kind of fun in the Retro Roadmap way. So one of the ways that you can actually go tour and see the sites of Old Yellowstone is, I say Old Yellowstone, is the, they've got these old, where'd it go? Hold on, they've got these old-fashioned, like, vintage buses that they used to take people on tours. They get a vintage bus tour. So they've been renovated, but they look awesome. So you could take like a vintage bus tour around, around Yellowstone, right? So that sounded like fun to me. And then the other one was as far as staying places. Now I do admit, I was reading this and it said make your plans well in advance. So maybe now you do that and you just have something to look forward to in the future. As I often say, travel is something that you can do that pays for itself in 3 ways. And it's like right now you get excited about it and you can anticipate going to someplace. So let's say you've got something on your calendar that you're not going to be doing until like August of next year. You have from now until then to be excited about it. And every time you think of it, it gives you good vibes. Then you do it, and then you're there and you're in the moment and you're totally grooving on it and you're loving it. And then after it's done, in the future, you can look back on it and say, wow, wasn't that a fun time? So this is the point. We're in the anticipation portion of our lives because we can't do a lot of this traveling. But one of the places that you might want to get on and do some make a reservation is the Old Faithful Inn in Yellowstone. It is the most requested lodging facility in the park. So again, the early worm catches the bird, or the early reserver gets the good place to stay. It was built in 1903 to 1904 with local logs and stone. The inn is considered the largest log structure in the world. So that is the Old Faithful Inn in I keep wanting to say Old Yeller. It's no, Yellowstone National Park with Old Faithful the geyser. You know, I've been doing a lot of talking. So of course my brain's gonna get a little scrambled like that. So the towering lobby of the Old Faithful Inn, it's got a massive stone fireplace, and it's got like, you can look up into the logs and see how it's all constructed. Looks absolutely beautiful. So that's where I want to and am going to, declarative sentence, I am going to stay when I go to Wyoming. And so maybe I will go online today and just kind of figure out, when I could go there and maybe make a reservation, okay? So a couple of more places, because I know I'm running short on time, but check this out, Jackson Hole. So this place was a bit of an anomaly to me, because when I started researching it, I mean, everything I've talked about has been very like rustic and, outdoorsy. And I'm not saying that Jackson Hole is not rustic and outdoorsy, but it's mainly outdoorsy and more kind of like high tone, kind of where the fancy people go. Jackson Hole is beautiful place for skiing if that's your thing. You can also do all sorts of other things. And here's another place that I think I want to go to Jackson Hole just to be able to go to the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. It's in Jackson Hole. It's been open since 1937, and it's famous for its Western swing dancing. I loves me some Western swing. I loves me some dancing. So, and then they have their saddle bar stools. So they're bar stools, and I won't say in the shapes of saddles, but they've got saddles on them. So you sit at the bar like on a saddle. And I just think that's hysterical. Many other kind of attractive places in Jackson Hole, though I will hip you to this. I bet there are some lovely affordable places, but I saw one hotel, you guys, they were like $2,000 a night. Too rich for my blood. And even if I had $2,000 to spend with that, I would be like, I'm going to spend less than that and then pocket the rest and spend that on something fun. So anyhow, that's the $1 Million Cowboy Bar in Jackson Hole. Check that out. Couple more things before we wrap up. Afton, Wyoming has the world's largest Elkhorn arch. And these Elkhorn arches are kind of a thing. I haven't mentioned it yet, but it's like an archway that says like, welcome to Elkton. I was in Elkton. Yeah, Elkhorn, Afton. I'm thinking Elkton, Maryland. It's a giant arch, and it's made out of the horns of elks. Hence the word Elkhorn. Now here's the cool thing. I looked it up because I was like, oh no, I hope they don't like kill them for their things. These elks, they lose their antlers after like mating season or something. They kind of fall off. If you Google it, you'll actually see a video of some guy who's walking around like this. Next thing you know, he's like, oh, and it falls off. And then he's like, oh, that feels so good, losing those antlers. So anyhow, there's an Elkhorn arch in Afton. Just a few minutes left. Want to make sure to do this. Svilars. Oh, see, well, I got this far with probably that's the thing I'm going to mangle the most, the mispronunciation happening. Svilars, S-V-I-L-A-R-S. It's actually Yugoslavian. I guess that's my first Yugoslavian word. It is a restaurant, bar, and steakhouse in Hudson, Wyoming. It's been open since 1916, and they've started serving their famous steaks in the 1960s. Totally old school looking place, family owned, in Hudson. So if that's your jam, and it's my jam too, I'd probably go there too. 2 more places before we wrap up. Thermopolis. No, it's not a place that, like, Superman would go to. Thermopolis. Therm, like thermostat, like hot. Thermopolis is the largest town in Hot Springs County, Wyoming, and Thermopolis is Greek for hot city. And it's not like hot, like hacha. It's because they have hot springs. Remember when we were talking about, Old Faithful and the geyser? Well, they've got hot springs that come up from the bowels of the earth, and then they warm up the water, and then you get to swim in the warm water. I totally love that stuff. I think that's going to be a thing that I incorporate into some of my vacations, because every time I read about hot springs, I'm like, ooh, that sounds like fun. So Thermopolis in Wyoming has home to numerous natural hot springs. Mineral-laden waters are heated by a geothermal process. So go check that out. And then lastly, this is kind of a silly place, and it's on the side of the highway. It's not old, but because some of you, like me, like places that like make themselves look unusual because of the things that they collect and put on the inside or the outside, there's a wee bit of a small chain called Sanford's Grub and Pub. The one I'm going to point out is in Casper, Wyoming, and they serve Cajun-style burgers, but they've got like all sorts of memorabilia like plastered on the walls, and this one in particular has a giant Bugs Bunny and a giant Daffy Duck. So we got Bugs Bunny and we got Daffy Duck outside. And this would be a place that, even though it's kind of chainy and not old school, I would totally go there as opposed to some beige and boring place. And especially because Retro Road Husband loves Bugs Bunny, and so I could tell you take a picture of him there. So that is Sanford's Grub and Pub in Casper, Wyoming. And oh my gosh, we are almost done. I am done. So that is Wyoming, people. So thank you so much for tuning in with me. Just a couple of things, just like some housekeeping, okay? This is episode, what were we? This is episode 43. So next week is going to be episode 44. And I'm letting you know this well in advance so you can get over the heartbreak. There are only 9 more episodes of Retro Roadmap Facebook Live going to happen. Because the last one is going to be on Thursday, December 31st of 2020. And then that also coincides with it being the last state I'm doing. I'm doing California. When 2021 hits, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I don't know if you have plans for 2021. I'm going to start making them, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that my plans right now for 2021 do not include doing these Retro Roadmap Facebook Lives. So if you like them, please just remember to show up for the next 8 or so weeks. The 2 days that I'm not going to do them, I know, Charles, I'm sorry. Sorry for breaking your heart like that. Thanksgiving is on 11/26. I'm not going to do one because I'm going to be all stuffing my face with stuffing and stuff like that. Also, 12/24 is Christmas Eve. I wouldn't want you guys to be distracted on Christmas Eve by me yakking about stuff like that. But I just want to let you know that from now until the end of the year, there are 9 more left. 2021 for me, honestly, I'm going to be planning my own road trip from all these places that I've been talking to you about. Seriously, I'm going to start here and be like, okay, if I drive 4 hours, this is what you all should be doing, right? This is what I'm going to do. And then get over here to California, because that's always seems to be my destination. And then maybe Hawaii, way out here. I'm also going to be writing my book. So those of you who know that I do Just Drive Your Life, that's the book I'm working on, and that's going to be awesome. So if you're not on my list, if you're not on my mailing list for that one, I suggest you get onto that, because I've got some neat things. Actually, just today I found out a thing I think I'm going to throw out to people who are on that list. So, yes. Yeah, Debbie, I'm not sure about live get-togethers. We're going to see. You know what? Anything is possible. Going to just figure out what's going to happen for next year. But until then, let's, get excited for what we can do in the future. Be good in the moment. Maud Betty signing off, saying drive towards your dreams and just drive your life. And I'll see you next week.